You look at the vibrantly decorated rickshaws rolling down the streets of South Asia, from Dhaka to Karachi, and you see a goldmine of street art. Bold pop colors, cinematic icons, enchanting folk motifs. Hundreds of thousands of rickshaws hit the road every single day, and every single one needs repainting, touch-ups, or custom decoration over time. You calculate the numbers in your head. The demand is infinite, the craftsmanship is unique, and the raw material is just a few cans of enamel paint and some brushes. This has to be the easiest cash flow business in the world. Here is the cold, hard truth. You aren't just opening an art studio. You are stepping straight into a brutal survival game within the informal economy. Behind those eye-catching masterpieces that captivate international tourists lies a stark financial reality. Razor-thin profit margins, a direct existential threat from cheap digital vinyl printing, toxic chemical fumes eroding the artisan's health, and a target clientele, rickshaw drivers, who happen to be among the lowest income earners in society. If you view this purely as an art business, you will go broke before the paint even dries on your first sheet of tin. So, how does this traditional craft manage to survive and even sustain generations of master painters? Let's break down the hidden economic engine behind a rickshaw painting workshop. Quote, outsiders see folk art. Insiders see a brutal survival race between hand-painted craftsmanship and industrial printing. 2. Classification of ownership models. To understand how a rickshaw painting business actually makes money, you first need to realize that there is no single one-size-fits-all blueprint. The industry is split across 4 to 5 primary ownership models, each carrying a radically different risk profile and profit margin structure. Model 1. The Independent Artisan Studio. Characteristics. Run by a master painter. The studio focuses on top-tier craftsmanship, taking custom orders on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis. Risk level. Moderate. Dependability rests 100% on the master's reputation and physical health. Scaling is nearly impossible because production capacity is bottlenecked by human labor. Model 2. The Garage Integrated Workshop. Characteristics. Co-located inside or directly tied to large rickshaw fleet owners. Garages. Once mechanical repairs are completed, the vehicle immediately moves over for repainting. Risk level. Lower customer acquisition risk due to a steady flow of fleet vehicles, but profit margins are squeezed to the bare minimum because garage owners hold all the bargaining power. Model 3. The Corporate-Sponsored Branding Studio. Characteristics. The studio functions almost like an outdoor billboard agency. Local brands, soft drink manufacturers, movie theaters, FMCG companies hire the workshop to paint logos and product ads onto the rear tin backboards of entire fleets. Risk level. High, stable revenue per contract, but carries delayed payment risks from corporate partners and heavy dependence on corporate marketing budgets. Model 4. The Cultural Export and Souvenir Studio. Characteristics. Capitalizing on global cultural recognition, such as UNESCO heritage tags, the studio shifts from painting street vehicles to creating decorative tin panels, canvas art, tote bags, and furniture for tourists and export markets. Risk level. Higher marketing costs and exposure to tourism fluctuations, but offers dramatically superior profit margins compared to traditional street painting. Model 5. The Family Guild Network. Characteristics. A multi-generational model where knowledge is passed down from masters to family members or apprentices. Apprentices handle prep work, sanding, priming, while the master steps in only for fine line work and signatures. Risk level. Extremely low labor costs and high operational resilience, but prone to creative stagnation and generational conflicts. While all these models create colorful rickshaw art, independent studios rely on prestige, garage workshops rely on volume, and export studios rely on cultural valuation. They may share the same product, but they are fundamentally different business machines. Quote, choosing the wrong ownership model in this business is like using fine oil painting brushes to paint an industrial factory wall. 3. Cost of re. If you want to launch a rickshaw painting workshop in a South Asian urban hub, the initial financial barrier to entry might seem surprisingly low, but don't let the low capital requirements fool you. Your working capital reserve is what actually determines whether you survive or go under in your first 6 months. Here is an estimated breakdown of startup costs, expressed in broad ranges in USD for global comparability, reflecting regional economic standards. Lease and workshop setup, $500 to $2,500. You don't need air-conditioned retail space. You need a covered, highly ventilated shed to vent toxic enamel paint and solvent fumes, with enough space to hold 3 to 8 rickshaw frames or dozens of tin, panels simultaneously. Usually located near major rickshaw hubs or garage clusters. Tools, equipment, and initial setup, $400 to $500. Includes specialized fine-line brushes, sable goat or cat hair, air compressors, spray guns for priming, anvils and shears, for shaping metal backboards, mixing pallets, and cleaning solvents, kerosene, thinners, enamel paints and chemical inventory, $300 and $1,000. Rickshaw art requires high gloss, synthetic enamel paints that can withstand intense sun, monsoon rain, and heavy physical impacts. Stocking up on primary and secondary paint colors represents a notable upfront inventory cost. Licenses and guild association fees, $500. Local trade permits, small business registrations, and crucial membership fees for local artisan associations or guilds to prevent harassment and secure territorial rights. Working capital reserve, 3 to 6 months, $3,000. Covers apprentice wages, electricity, rent, and raw material replenishment while waiting for payments from garage owners or corporate clients. Total estimated startup cost, $2, $300, $8,500. Compared to almost any other business, this capital requirement is modest. But here is the catch. Low startup costs mean an extremely thin barrier to entry. Any skilled apprentice who leaves your workshop can open a competing studio right across the street within a week. Quote, "In the rickshaw painting business, startup capital doesn't buy security, it only buys you a ticket into a cutthroat race." 4. The real operating mechanism. The way a rickshaw painting business generates money isn't just a simple matter of a driver drops off a vehicle, you paint it, they pay and leave. The underlying operational mechanism is much tighter, driven almost entirely by the asset turnover rate of the rickshaw itself. Remember this fundamental rule. A rickshaw sitting in a painting booth is an asset generating zero income for its owner and driver. Every day spent waiting for paint to dry is a day the owner loses rental income and the driver loses daily fares. Therefore, the workshop's entire operational flow must be optimized for real-time speed. Phase 1. Surface pre-treatment. The tin backboard or body panels are detached. Apprentices scrub away flaking paint, treat rust spots with mild acid, and apply a rapid-drying anti-corrosive primer. Phase 2. Composition outlining. The master painter uses chalk to rapidly sketch the core imagery. Depending on the owner's preference, motifs range from movie stars and rural landscapes to mythological figures or social commentary. Phase 3. Color block filling. Apprentices or junior painters fill in large background blocks, sky, water, border patterns, using synthetic enamel paints. Phase 4. Fine lining, the master's touch. The master steps in with fine-line detail brushes, bringing facial features to life, sharpening outlines, adding decorative filigree, and stamping the workshop's official signature. Phase 5. Curing and assembly. Because enamel paint dries slowly, heat lamps or industrial blowers are used to accelerate curing. The panels are bolted back onto the chassis, and the vehicle is dispatched back onto the street. What is the driver's psychology? To a driver, a rickshaw isn't just a tool for work. It is their identity and visual signature on the road. A well-painted, bright vehicle attracts significantly more passengers at crowded intersections than a rusted, dull alternative. The painter is not just a decorator, they are a provider of a competitive edge in a crowded market. Quote, "Every brushstroke isn't just color, it's a ticking clock on the driver's daily rental fee." 5. Central paradoxical insight. Now we arrive at the most critical economic and strategic insight of this entire business model. If you ask a passerby on the street, they will tell you, rickshaw painting workshops sell folk art to drivers. If you ask an inexperienced workshop owner, they will tell you, I make a living selling hand-painted art piece by piece. Both are wrong. Here is the counterintuitive truth that has kept this industry alive through decades of economic shifts. The real revenue engine and core economic driver of a rickshaw painting business does not come from art. It comes from turning the vehicle into a hyperlocal, mobile billboard and providing a de facto anti-theft insurance policy. Let's unpack both sides of this paradox. 1. The hyperlocal mobile billboard network. The backboard of a rickshaw sits directly at eye level for millions of commuters stuck in urban traffic every single day. Local businesses, jewelry shops, movie theaters, neighborhood clinics, and politicians during election seasons recognized this decades ago. They don't pay the driver directly, they go straight to the painting workshop. They sponsor the painting costs for the workshop on the condition that the master painter incorporates their logo, brand name, or campaign slogan into the centerpiece artwork. The workshop operates as a micro-advertising broker. The painter keeps the margin from the corporate marketing budget, while the rickshaw owner gets a freshly painted vehicle for free or at a massive discount. 2. The built-in anti-theft protection system. Vehicle theft is rife in densely populated urban centers. A generic, factory-painted rickshaw can easily be stolen, broken down, and sold in chop shops without a trace. But a rickshaw painted by a renowned master artist, featuring a distinct color palette, custom motifs, and an unmistakable workshop signature, is virtually impossible to fence. Thieves actively avoid stealing custom-painted rickshaws from famous workshops because any rival driver or street patrol can spot the stolen vehicle instantly. Rickshaw owners don't pay for elaborate artwork merely out of aesthetic pride. They are buying an asset protection system. Quote, "You think people are buying an oil painting. In reality, they are purchasing a mobile billboard contract bundled with an anti-theft insurance policy." 6. Case studies. Failure versus success. Note, the following case studies are generalized composites based on real industry trends in South Asian artisan economies, illustrating strategic business lessons. Case Study A. Studio X, the stagnation trap. Studio X was a traditional street workshop in a historic quarter. For 15 years, the owner followed a single formula, accepting cash-per-job orders directly from individual drivers. When digital vinyl decal printing arrived, offering full-color wraps at 1/4 the price of hand painting in just 15 minutes instead of 2 days, Studio X faced a crisis. Rather than adapting, the owner criticized digital printing for destroying the soul of traditional art and tried to maintain high prices to preserve traditional artisan wages. The result was predictable. Drivers, who operate on extremely tight daily budgets, flocked to digital wrap shops. Studio X lost 70% of its core revenue within 2 years. Unable to pay skilled apprentices, quality degraded, and the workshop permanently shuttered. Case Study B. Studio Y, the strategic pivot. Studio Y faced the exact same threat from digital printing. But the owner realized an essential truth. You cannot beat industrial machines on speed or price. You can only win on emotional value and new application markets. Studio Y split its operations into 2 distinct tracks. Track 1. Volume and cash flow. They adopted stencil-assisted spray painting for background elements on street rickshaws, lowering production time and prices to stay competitive against vinyl wraps for budget-conscious drivers. Track 2. High-margin expansion. They took the artwork off the street. They began painting vintage tin backboards as interior wall art, decorating helmets, leather goods, and high-end furniture, exporting them to international boutique shops and cultural gift stores. They collaborated with fashion labels to license their traditional motifs. The result? Even though their volume of street rickshaws dropped by 30%, Studio Y's total revenue grew by 300%, driven by the high profit margins of cultural exports and home decor. Quote, "When technology turns your skill into a cheap commodity, your only option is to turn that skill into heritage or luxury." 7. Sample financial model below is a hypothetical monthly profit and loss, P&L, readout for a mid-sized rickshaw painting studio, consisting of 1 master painter, 2 assistants, and 1 apprentice, operating in a South Asian urban area using a hybrid business model, street services plus decorative extravagant goods. Figures are presented in USD for standardized clarity. 1. Monthly revenue standard street rickshaw painting, 40 vehicles times $25, $1,000. Corporate advertising sponsorships, 15 vehicles times 50, $750. Decorative tin art and souvenirs, tourism export, 20 units times 40, $800. Total monthly revenue, $2,550. 2. Raw materials and supplies, enamel paints, thinners, tin plates, brushes, $550, 21.5% of revenue. Workshop, rent and utilities, electricity, ventilation, water, $350. Labor costs, assistant artisans, 2 apprentice stipend, $150. Tool maintenance, marketing and logistics, $150. Waste, rework and touch-ups, $100. Total monthly operating expenses, $800. 3. Financial performance gross profit, $2,550, $552,000. Net operating profit, pre-tax, $2,100, $750. Net profit margin, 29.4%. Total owner income, beyond the $750 net profit, if the master painter actively works on fine line details, they draw an artisan wage of $400, $500. Total owner takeaway sits between $1,150. 4. Break-even analysis. With fixed operating costs sitting around $1,150, rent baseline wages, utilities, The studio must complete a minimum of 28 to 32 standard rickshaw jobs per month just to reach break-even before generating a single dollar of net profit. Quote, "A studio lives or dies not by the most expensive artwork it sells, but by the minimum number of pieces it is forced to complete every month." 8. Best case vs. worst case scenarios. The market rarely stays stable. Macroeconomic shocks can quickly rewrite any financial projection. Here is how performance swings under extreme conditions. Best case scenario conditions. The art form receives international recognition or government heritage preservation backing. Consumer brands aggressively seek authentic local culture ad campaigns. Impact. The studio locks in multi-vehicle corporate sponsorship deals. Prices for exported souvenir tin panels surge by 50–100%. Monthly revenue reaches $4,000–$6,000. Net monthly profit climbs to $5,500–$2,500. Net margins hitting 35–40%. Worst-case scenario conditions. Municipal authorities restrict or ban rickshaws from major urban arteries to reduce traffic congestion. Paint and chemical prices surge due to import inflation. Cheap vinyl wraps dominate the street market. Impact. Street vehicle volume plummets by 60%. The studio gets dragged into a destructive price war to retain basic clients. Monthly revenue drops to $900–$200. Net monthly profit falls to $150. The business operates barely at break-even. The owner works purely for survival wages. The difference between a best-case and worst-case scenario represents a 10x to 15x swing in net income, highlighting the extreme vulnerability of workshops that rely solely on low-end street painting. Quote, "In a worst-case scenario, you're a street painter struggling for your next meal. In a best-case scenario, you're the head of a cultural media agency." 9. What winners do differently, plus conclusions after analyzing the economic realities. From capital requirements to financial margins and macro risks, one question remains: what do the successful, long-term survivors in this industry do differently? They don't sit in a shed waiting for a rickshaw bell to ring outside their door. Winners execute 3 strategic playbooks. Product portfolio diversification. They treat street rickshaw painting as a high-visibility loss leader to build local credibility, while earning their real profits from interior wall panels, commercial murals, custom fashion collaborations, and export merchandise. IP and personal branding. They turn their workshop signature into a recognized trademark. They showcase their creative process on digital platforms, host cultural art workshops for tourists, and license their patterns to global design brands. Supply chain aggregation. Instead of buying paints and thinners at retail prices, successful studios form informal purchasing cooperatives with neighboring workshops, securing bulk discounts of 15–20% on raw materials. Conclusions. Running a rickshaw painting business isn't a romantic story about a solitary artist painting under the sun. It is a sharp business lesson in managing turn times, optimizing material costs, leveraging ad sponsorships, and continuously pivoting to avoid being erased by industrial technology. Running a rickshaw painting studio is very much like riding a rickshaw through a chaotic traffic intersection. If you stop pedaling, if you stop innovating and diversifying, the bike tilts and collapses. But if you maintain your momentum and balance traditional craft with modern strategy, you can turn street-level brushstrokes into a sustainable business empire.